I think probably a few more people will join us. Okay, so we're on day 3 of this particular round of meditation sessions. My name's Saddhanandi, if you're just joining us for the first time, and I'll be leading us today and the next 2 days. I'm just watching various people getting comfortable, climbing back into bed. Looks like a good idea. Yeah, so yesterday somebody on this Zoom meeting, I forget, it might have been I can't remember, Serid maybe, I can't remember his name. Anyway, somebody was just talking about the conditioned nature of his mind, and the nature of our minds are that it is a very conditioned sort of system. We're very prone to the conditions around us, and we can be very naive about how sort of susceptible and how supported we are by the conditions around us. So I want to say a little bit about that. And then I'm going to lead us in a meditation that's based on equanimity, which was it's the 4th of the Brahma Viharas system. So some of you might have been taught the Brahma Viharas meditations, starting with metta, and then compassion, sympathetic joy, and then equanimity. So we're leading us in a very simple practice of upekkha or equanimity. Many years ago, I went to see Sangharakshita, my teacher, and we were having a conversation about something. And he said to me, if people are shocked by what other people do, then it means that they lack imagination. And I thought this was very interesting. And it's a very kind of kind and understanding approach, I think. Because if you're really imaginative, you understand how all of us can do almost anything given the right circumstances. We wished it wasn't like that. We wish sometimes we were a little bit more independent of conditions, but we're often not independent on conditions. It doesn't take much actually to have quite an effect on our mental states. All of us could be already having an illness that's going to last a long time. Maybe we don't even know that we've got that illness, and that illness can actually have a very changing effect on the whole of our life. So then how do you maintain your integrity and your positivity and your clarity, even though your physical conditions are changing? This was also very striking for me. This truth was very sort of strong for me about 1 or 2 months ago, when I was hosting a big online event, connecting everybody from the Adhisthana meditation hall to those people that we knew were in Germany, Berlin, and in, particularly Krakow, but also in Poland. And people were just talking a lot about their experience of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. And I've got, good friends who are at the moment already housing refugees from that conflict. And they were also talking about their friendships with either the Ukrainians or the Russians and the conversations that they were having. And some of the men involved were making decisions about whether they should take up arms or not, either way. And I was in a very safe, ordinary environment at Adhisthana with the resident community here, plus maybe 30 very experienced meditation teachers. And we were all thinking about this and watching these friends online and engaged with that conversation. And I knew that everyone was thinking the same as me, which was, I don't know what I would do under those circumstances. It was a very sort of sobering and levelling effect on us, actually, that I suspect not one of us believed we would make the right decision in the right moment necessarily. It's a nice idea, but sometimes you don't even know what the right decision is. Sometimes you don't even know what the best thing is to do. Sometimes we don't really know what the best thing was until many years later that we have more of an understanding. We just have to make the decision we make at the time. But I think there was a sort of a tremendous sense of connection and solidarity for the human condition just doing its best, basically. We were just part of the human condition. And some of us were on very safe ground. And some of us were in very safe ground, but very close to very dangerous ground. And some people were already on dangerous ground in themselves and sort of objectively. Yeah, so none of us in that room, I think, lacked the imagination that we would do something that maybe we regret later, or maybe just put it that way. Under certain circumstances, we can't guarantee that we would act with the integrity and the kindness that we would wish to uphold. So all of us are living under various circumstances, and we're all being conditioned by those circumstances. And then we ourselves are conditioning factors within those circumstances. Yeah. And sometimes just having a sense of that is quite a burden in life, in some ways. It's like you realise you can't do very much without having an effect. Sometimes you wish it wasn't like that. I live with a lot of people here, and I see the effect that I can have for good and for bad. I can see I can have a positive effect, I can contribute well, or I can bring a certain mood, a sort of negative mood into a situation, or my anxiety can have an influence in the situation, or my irritation can have an influence in the situation. And sometimes you just want to lift yourself out of that system and think, can I just shake down for a moment and be free of the fact that I am having an impact on others. You can sometimes find a place where that can possibly be the case. Although if you think of the nature of consciousness, the nature of mind, you begin to wonder whether there is such a thing as complete isolation, because we are so connected. I've had very particular experiences of my mind, my consciousness reaching reaching quite far distances in an unexpected way. It did make me think, I really don't understand the system that I'm functioning under. It's much more sort of mysterious and far-reaching and sensitive as a system. In the interview, in this particular cycle of the nature of mind, Carol Bowman is describing her interviews with children who remember past lives. And some of them are still carrying some of the conditions of their last death. I can't remember all the details, but there was one where maybe some young boy describes a particular way he died, which was to do with his throat. And I think somebody points out he has, I don't know if he had a thyroid problem or a scar, I can't remember what it was now. And he still carried something from that. So we're all carrying things from the past, and we're carrying them into the future. And we're all carrying the past and the future for each other. We're all having an effect. We're all having an effect within this system. I mean, the great thing about this is that we can also change the effect we have. And that can make quite a big difference, a surprising difference. We're more influential than we realise. I think that'd probably be the quick way of saying it. But the system works globally in terms of the environment, as we all know. And it works in ways where we cannot anticipate the effect of certain conditions, like, I don't know, the outcome of less insects or the less pollinating bees has an effect in the system that we did not anticipate. So it's all of these things are happening globally, as well as just at the breakfast table in your own house. Yeah, so it's happening very locally as well as on a very, very big scale. And I think it can be very sobering. I think learning this sort of aspect of ourselves, that we're so conditioned. And this is what that guy was pointing out yesterday to us, one of the guys on the Zoom. He was saying, my mind is very conditioned. My mind is very conditioned. And it's fantastic because it means we can change our mind. And this is what this project's all about. Understanding the nature of the mind and then changing the mind. When you begin to understand that the mind is a process that can be changed, you begin to really start wanting to engage with that process and make a difference. And when you make a difference to your own mind, you begin to have an influence on the environment around you, the people around you. Yeah, so this doesn't necessarily excuse our behaviour, given that we are conditioned beasts, and those conditions will be having an impact, whether it's, it can be quite small conditions, like the room is a bit cold, so we get irritable, so we say the wrong thing. It can be as simple as that. Or it can be much larger things, like, I don't know, we face a very degenerative illness, for instance, and we're having to sort of work with our own mental events around that, and then watch close friends and family relate to that as well. And we wish we could lift ourselves out of that system so we weren't having such a lot of impact. At the same time, we're going to be receiving support a lot from those people as well. And it's a very sensitive system that we're involved with. Yeah, and when you begin to see how much we're influenced by conditions, then you begin to wonder where you lay the blame on bad behaviour. Yeah? What is blameworthy? Well, who is to blame? Because we're so conditioned by things, who is to blame? And from a Buddhist point of view, you begin to say the nature of mind is so conditioned that there isn't such a thing as a Saddhanandi. All there is a habit that I've got into that's based upon conditions, and that habit's got positive tendencies and negative tendencies, and that's it makes a lot of my behaviour understandable. It might not be excusable, it might not be positive, but it is at least understandable. And because it's understandable, we can have a certain amount of compassion and care for each other, that each other would behave in certain ways that is understandable to us. Yeah, I don't know whether any of you have watched a sort of documentary that went out and came out maybe 20 years ago. God, now I've forgotten what the name of it was. I think it's called The Dharma Brothers. And it's when an insight meditation teachers go into a high security jail in the middle of America. And they teach insight meditation, very, very intensive 10-day silent retreat in a massive secure gym in the middle of that jail. It's definitely worth looking at. And the Dharma Brothers are the 30 men that were involved in being taught that meditation. And then afterwards, some of them are interviewed, and the stories that get unfolded from their past and why they ended up in jail. Some of them will never, ever get out of jail. And it's very touching. Their stories are just very heartwarming, actually. And yeah, it's worth looking at, and you begin to see again the kind of conditions that people live under, and amazing that they were trying to change their mind in the circumstances that they were based in that moment. they were in a no hope situation almost. With some of them were never ever going to get released from that particular prison. Certainly from the prison system, maybe possibly from that high security prison. What do you do? Thank you. What do you do under circumstances where there's almost no hope? Where do you go with your mind there? Yeah. Yeah, so we can have a lot of kindness and compassion and empathy for all of us who are in the same, living under the same burden of actions having consequences, basically. Our actions have consequences. And they have consequences for us, and they have consequences for others. And not only are we being conditioned by conditions, but we are the conditioning factors for other people. And that is a very sensitive sort of relationship we have with each other. So just having a little bit of imagination, we can have care for one another under those circumstances. Yeah, whoever you meet, whether it's in the supermarket or on public transport, or whether it's in a meditation class, all the different personalities we meet, the different kind of ways that people function, just have a little bit more imagination and a little bit more understanding for one another, and know that each one of us could be doing the same thing given different circumstances. Got lots of chats going on at the moment. Yeah, so I'm going to lead us in a meditation based on equanimity. This meditation, equanimity, is going to be a very simplified form, and we'll meditate for about 30 minutes, maybe a bit longer than that actually. And equanimity is the wisdom aspect of the system of the Brahma Viharas, the development of positive emotion. And the wisdom aspect is that it sees this system of conditionality. It sees how much we're dependent on conditions. All of us are in the same, living under the same circumstances. And it sees that within those circumstances, there can be a great deal of joy, a great deal of joy. There can be a great deal of delight and happiness and friendship and love. And also under conditionality, there can be a great deal of suffering and of anger and of ill will, hurt, aggression, whatever. Okay. So in some ways, the law of conditionality is going to, well, all of us are going to be holding both, and under the law of conditions, all of it happens, Yeah, the catastrophe of the human condition, as it were. So we're going to be just sort of stepping into that together today. So just setting yourself up in meditation. You might want to switch off your camera or turn your screen around if you don't want the light facing you. Whatever's best for you. If you like, just giving yourself the conditions you need right now. And just settling yourself down, settling yourself in your body. Maybe just following on from yesterday, just being aware of the sounds around you. The activity of life around you. Wildlife, birds, the weather, human beings. This great, beautiful system of life in which we live. Relaxing the mind, relaxing the body. Maybe just this meditation, this moment of stillness, this moment of connection, maybe. That's just a gift to the world, a gift to this whole system that we're part of. And there are just 80 of us, maybe, just sitting here, turning our mind to some sort of benefit of ourselves, of each other, that has some sort of effect into the world as a conditioning factor. Through meditation, through greater understanding, we can release ourselves a little bit from the conditions upon which we're based. Having a sense of all of us sitting here together Some of us getting quite familiar with each other through these mornings. A sense of connection. Now turning your awareness towards yourself. Having an overall sense of yourself today. There are certain conditions in your life that create joy, pleasure, ease. And just be glad for that. Just allowing the pleasure in your life to really touch you. And there are conditions in your life that create more turbulence and discomfort and tension. Can you let that discomfort and that tension also touch you without adding anything else to it? Now, holding in our awareness the conditioned nature of our mind, the whole susceptibility we have towards conditions. You can just feel that vulnerability whilst also holding a very patient understanding of why it's like that. And now calling to mind a friend or someone you know quite well. Maybe they have a particular happiness or joy at the moment in their lives. Or maybe a particular area of suffering or discomfort. Just focusing on one of those. And just holding them in your mind with awareness of the whole breadth of conditions that they're functioning under. Don't identify with them too strongly, with either the pain and suffering or with the joy and the pleasure. But just see them more as somebody just like us, prone to the conditioned nature of their mind. And just holding them with patient understanding and with the love that that patience comes with. Now just relaxing the mind, just letting that person go. Having a sense of all of us here, meditating together across the world. Each one of us endeavouring to change our minds, to become a little bit freer of the conditions that we find ourselves in, so that our mental states aren't quite so susceptible to them. All of us on some sort of quest for ourselves and for the world. All of us at different times just driven by ignorance. I just feel a tremendous sense of connection with this human race that we're part of. Working in whatever way we can with our conditioned nature. Expanding out into the world around us, maybe towards those people we might meet in the next 24 hours, and people we'll never meet. Just having an understanding of this whole conditioned world that we live in. The susceptibility and vulnerability that goes with that. And also the tremendous potential and possibilities of change. All of us living and working within the constrictions of a conditioned mind and wanting to be free. And just wishing that freedom for everyone. If I could be a bit freer of the conditioned nature of my mind, maybe I can help somebody else do the same. And now, just beginning to relax the mind back into the physical sensations of the body and the sounds around us. And in your own way, beginning to just bring the meditation to a close. So I know some of you are going to leave probably at this moment. And you might want to just leave and sit quietly and not get involved in the conversation, which is fine. I'll get Patrick to just paste in chat again the generosity link. If any of you are leaving and just want to give us some money, that'd be great. So there's an opportunity now to post any questions or any thoughts into the chat. And if there's any very complicated questions, I'll just call you in and you can just tell it to me verbally. Might be easier. I'm just getting this lovely image from the Pali Canon, which is a very early Buddhist text, where sometimes the Buddha would say, "Are there any more questions?" or something, and there would be no questions. And then the Buddha would say something like, "That is because everybody in this audience is enlightened," or something like that. This lovely moment looking around at all of you thinking, that is because we all of us are deep in meditation or deep in something and we don't have any questions right now. Yeah. I mean, if we don't have any questions, we'll do another short meditation maybe, if people want to join that. Maybe I will ask you all a question, which is, if you were to really understand the conditioned nature of the mind, what difference would it make to your life?
Read out the question.
Yeah.
So Julie asks, "Hi Saddhanandi, is it enough to realise we are conditioned, or is it important to explore those conditions?"
So is it important, is it enough to know that you're conditioned, or is it important to explore those conditions? Yeah. Well, probably both are needed at different levels. I think just simply exploring the conditions and understanding the conditions could help you be free from those particular conditions, and that might be a good thing. And it certainly brings, if it brings more understanding to who you are, that is also a good thing. And if it's in a therapeutic way, it's able to sort of, like pop your kind of relationship with it all, or heal that relationship with those conditions. That is a good thing. But that won't be the end of it. your mind will still be conditioned by other things as well. So you do have to have an understanding in an overall sense of how we're prone and susceptible to that. And what does it mean? This is what Buddhism is all about. What does it really mean to create a robust consciousness or a robust state of mind that is less conditioned or less susceptible to conditions, which is what we're all trying to do. We're trying to create connection or feelings of love or feelings of well-being that are not just dependent on whether we have a good cup of coffee in the morning, for instance, just to use that in a very simple way. That's what, when we talk about enlightenment, or when we talk about spiritual development, we're talking about developing something that is freer from the system of conditionality. Sometimes we use this phrase, the unconditioned mind, as if there is such a thing as the unconditioned mind. But what there is just simply human beings less prone to conditions. And that's what we're all trying to achieve through meditation, through greater awareness. So we've got to understand that as a whole whole system, as it were. We've got to have wisdom. We've got to have some sort of strong understanding of how that's functioning, as well as have some understanding of and explore the conditions that's maybe made us like that. But I don't think that's, I think just going into the past or just going into what our conditions are is going to be a bit limited as well.
So in answer to your question of how people would, what it would be like if people really saw how conditioned they were or their mind was, two different people said that freedom and being free.
Yeah, it would be free. If we understood a bit more the conditioned nature of our mind, we'd be free.
Stephen said that I would be sensitive to the conditions I put myself in and try to remain aware of the conditions that others may be.
Yeah, being sensitive to the conditions that we put ourselves in is a good thing. And at the same time, we're not trying to create a kind of greenhouse situation for ourselves. We want to be plants that can be potted out into the world and grow with vitality and strength and blossom in the world. We don't want to just be able to blossom under very sort of glass house conditions. So both has got to happen. We've got to create conditions that support us to grow, and also grow in such a way that we are able to function as robust human beings in the world itself. My teacher, Sangharakshita, says we grow. I remember one day I walked in to see him and he said, Saddhanandi, we grow much more like plants do. And I thought he was probably telling me that for a reason, not for me personally, but I imagined he was reading at that point something to do with a Buddhist meditation technique, which is very deconstructing, which has a very positive effect, but it doesn't allow for kind of organic growth in the way that he believed that we grow as plants grow. So we want to be plants that can be potted out into, if necessary, quite harsh conditions and still thrive. Yeah. At the same time, we need to understand our limitations and be careful of the conditions that we choose. Anything else, Patrick?
Yeah, so a few more comments in response to your question. So Amy said that it's interesting and painful to look at the more unpleasant conditions, particularly in combination with her training for ordination, and that sometimes it feels impossible to accept that those conditions are part of the path.
Okay, I could say something in that. I don't quite know what the conditions are that you're dealing with, but if we as plants want to grow strong and we're trying to learn, and the earlier session I did, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, that what we're really trying to do is enter a life of learning, and sometimes difficult conditions help us to learn something, and that is the only way that we turn them into supportive conditions. I don't think you need to throw yourself into difficult conditions for any other reason. But I remember being quite struck once when I was frustrated and irritated because I was trying to run a whole team in the work situation that I was functioning in, and I wanted my manager to support me more, and she wasn't giving me very much support, and I thought, I felt resentful towards that. And then I thought, actually, what she's trying to do is allow me to learn my own lessons and to stand a bit more independent of her. And that in a strange way, she was part of the positive conditions of me becoming the manager or teacher or leader that I became. So it's interesting that the effect of conditions on us are not necessarily what we think. And don't underestimate. Yeah, well, maybe I'll just leave it like that for the moment. Just say that question again, so I've got it correct. So yeah.
Sure. So it's interesting and painful to look at the more unpleasant conditions in combination with training for ordination.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels impossible to accept those conditions are part of the path. Amy did actually add after you asked that she said she has a son with challenging ADHD.
Okay. Yeah, so that is going to be very demanding. And I'm trying to imagine if you have to be at home a lot or it's in quite a constricted situation. Maybe, and I'm thinking about the interview with Paul Gilbert that happened a few series ago. Maybe one of the things he says is, it's not your fault. And he said that a lot in the interview, it's not your fault. So maybe there's something about the conditions can be challenging enough, and now don't add anything to them. And just notice where the mind adds something. The hope, or the long for, or the if only, or the if only I was living my life over there, I'd get ordained quicker. Who knows what would happen there? So don't add extra layers to the difficult circumstances that you find yourself in. And if you can do that, you will create a really special environment for Dharma practice. Yeah. It will become really obvious to you, yourself and others.
We've got 3 more responses to your question and also a separate question.
Okay.
So, in response to your question, Anjali says she would worry less about what might happen and enjoy much more of a sense of agency in what is unfurling in front of and around me, both more closely and across the globe.
It's great, isn't it? It's like we feel ourselves more as more empowered, and like the potential of us to change our minds is very, very strong, much stronger than we realise. And we need some supportive conditions, but some of the conditions are internal, and we're trying to develop those. Anything else?
Yeah, and Serena says more compassion and empathy, knowing that others could be in conditions we would never imagine possible.
Yeah. More empathy. I mean, it's beautiful, isn't it? You can really move through the world and see people struggling with lots of different circumstances and conditions, or behaving in ways which we don't have to condone, but maybe just hold them with a more of an understanding of why that might be happening right now.
So another answer to your question from Natasha. It's a very difficult question. I would be both very energetic in acting to help the persons around me, but I guess I also would know when to withdraw, to nurture the stillness of mind, but also the body with its limitations. I would not be self-absorbed at all, but I would have a great feeling for what the best would be to do now.
How lovely. To not be self-absorbed at all, but to have an understanding of what to do now. And there is maybe just a tremendous ease and sense of well-being when you've got more of this kind of wisdom approach. And how beautiful to be able to just contribute to whoever's standing in front of you. Yeah, we do need to keep developing that kind of understanding and, well, as that person said, that stillness. But stillness can be very active, and stillness really means more like not bringing your story to every situation that you meet. It's more like you could be extremely active, but your own narrative isn't blocking you with the other person. So it's more like quiet. A story is quiet, less than the. It's not that the energy needs to be quiet. Your energy might still be, still very dynamic, but there's less and less of you involved in your own story. So there's less and less sort of narrative that's active. I'm trying to describe something that's a bit complicated, or maybe it's very simple. I'm trying to describe it in a complicated way. But hopefully you get a glimpse of that. I remember once I had a friend who was in a wheelchair, and I was quite nearby. I was in one building and I watched her crossing a courtyard, and she tipped out of her wheelchair accidentally because she bumped into a paving stone. And because of the back condition that she had, the injuries that she had, I was very frightened for her in that moment. But I knew that I mustn't bring my own fear and anxiety to that situation. What was most important in that moment was I just worked out what to do and helped her do it. And I quickly ran out to her, and then we did various things, and I got back into the chair. And later she said, "Thank you, Saddhanandi. You brought nothing else to it." That was all she said. And I thought that's how to remain absolutely quiet and bring no other narrative to it except for what needs to be done. That's what we're trying to do.
So a question from Lisa. How do you work with the conditioned mind when you are being treated badly and cannot change or choose the circumstances?
Yeah. How can you work with a conditioned mind when you're in very difficult circumstances and being treated badly? It's very difficult to answer this question without it sounding very sort of kind of naive or sort of simplistic or sort of a bit unrealistic or something. So I'm just trying to work out what to say. Firstly, I think in the question saying that those conditions cannot be changed.
That's right, and cannot change or choose the circumstances you are in.
Okay. So if you can't change the circumstances, I don't advocate that that you mustn't always stay in bad conditions. So please do move conditions if you need to, and don't think you've just got to sort of sweat it out and try and apply your mind to changing conditions. Sometimes we just need to get out or make it or move on or something. So a patient understanding, or patience as it were, isn't passivity. So, but in this circumstance, it isn't possible to change that. And I think one of the things is I'm just trying to think if I've got what I can draw on in my own experience. One of my heroes is oh God, my words have gone funny now. Is Brian Keenan, who was kept as a hostage for 4.5 years, I think, in the Far East. This was, his book came out maybe 20 years ago or something. And he was able to see his captors, the people that were keeping him imprisoned, as more imprisoned than he was, which was kind of interesting. He was able to see that his mind could still be freer, and they were still working within much stronger religious, political kind of restrictions, and he wasn't part of that system. And he could still do stuff in his imagination and live. He felt in his own mind much freer than they were able to. which was kind of very, very interesting. And there's that writer as well, that very famous writer, sorry, I can't remember his name now, who was in the concentration camps in one of the wars, where he realizes that even under those circumstances, he could find a level of freedom in his mind. His mind was not dictated by the conditions that he found himself in. Now, thank you, Viktor Frankl. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yes, exactly, Viktor Frankl. And I'm not going to be naive, this is not an easy thing. I think sometimes when we're under really serious conditions, our mind will do something much greater. It's like sometimes if you're in the jungle and a lion jumps in front of your path, you can actually find a mental event that will help you. But when mosquitoes wear you down, eventually you have chronic mental fatigue, as it were. It's the small things that get you down. Yeah? So I'm really not, I don't want to belittle any kind of circumstances right now. But what you're trying to do is you need to find your own freedom as a human being in those circumstances. And where are you going to find that? I need to go into myself. Where are you going to find that? Right, okay, so it's like asking yourself, is there a choice I can make right now in my mind? And also, is there any level of suffering that I am creating for myself right now? And just, in a way, just investigate your mind in those moments. Because your ability and power to investigate your mind is for you to have initiative. And that may or may not have an impact on the conditions around you. But at least from the inside, you feel as if you are empowered, basically. But certainly asking, is there a level of pain or suffering that I am creating for myself right now? And see if you can liberate yourself from that. So it's very difficult to know how to answer these questions so much in the abstract and in front of a lot of people, and they're difficult questions. Is there anything else?
There's a few thank yous.
Good.
Amy says thank you for your answer to her.
Thank you, Amy.
And Vanessa says thank you so much. A wonderful, rich session. Lucky and grateful to be able to be here. Great to meditate with you all and have a wonderful day. That's from Vanessa. There was an answer to your question from Jess. She says that my relationships would improve as I would be less reactive to things. I'm sensitive due to things that have happened in the past.
So sensitivity, there are people, aren't they, that people are very sensitive because of the things that have happened to them in the past. So it's you've got an extra sort of sensitive layer, and you just got to hold that with compassion in yourself. And also bear in mind, like I live with somebody who's ultra sensitive because of things that have happened in their past. And it's like a kind of ricochet effect, I don't mean to hurt them when I hurt them, even when I'm a bit clumsy. So we're all working in a very sensitive system, and just have compassion for others sometimes when they hurt you in that sensitivity or make mistakes. Yeah. We are all in it together, aren't we? The human race.
And just a final thank you from Lisa.
Okay.
Very helpful. Thank you for your understanding and metta.
And yeah, thanks Anjali for just posting up Viktor Frankl's book. Thank you. Yes, we can become fearless. Okay, so let's just sit. For those of us that still want to be here, let's just sit for a couple of minutes. We can just close our eyes and sit after the end of this session. And just, we could just offer whatever understanding and whatever feeling of connection that we felt today, and just offer it for the benefit of the world. Yeah. Just all of us together, just handing over any benefit that we might have experienced into the service of the good, into the service of the world. Okay, so just closing that down or drawing that to a close. I'll just finish with the final point. When one of my friends was talking about going on retreat and the benefits of being on retreat, Sangharakshita said to them, they were very, he was pleased with the points that person made, but Sangharakshita said the benefits of going on retreat is to return. So the benefits of doing a meditation and to having a little bit more understanding or a little bit more kindness is to step out into the world. So I wish you well with whatever stepping out into the world you do today, the rest of and between now and the next session. And yeah, please give us any money you can if you've got a credit card that you can use. Okay, and see you tomorrow, hopefully. Yeah, bye-bye. Oh, just unmute and say goodbye. I forgot.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a lovely
Bye.
day.
Thank you,
Thank
Saddhanandi.
you so much, Saddhanandi.
Beautiful. Have a good day, everyone.
Have a
Thank you,
good day.
Saddhanandi.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Saddhanandi. Bye.
Have a great day, everybody.